So, hi guys, and welcome back to KRN TV. We're bringing you the most exciting interviews from around the world. Today we've got another fantastic guest, as always. He's been kind enough to invite us down to his house. Today we've got Shaun Attwood. Shaun, thank you very much for having me here today.
We meet again, Christian.
Absolutely. So, for people who don't know, Shaun was a multi-millionaire stockbroker, ended up getting involved in Ecstasy trade in America, then ended up becoming imprisoned in America, unfortunately. And then since he's come back to this country, obviously got into the media world through obviously becoming a very successful YouTube sort of maybe mogul at this point now. And obviously a very successful author as well, and then create your own publishing company. So it has been insane going from strength to strength month by month. And so I'd like to say congratulations on your journey.
Thanks, but don't get my ego going, because my ego was as big as the Grand Canyon in Arizona. And look what happened there.
Well, it's all about what you're into at those times, you know what I mean? As long as it's channeled in a legit manner.
Yeah, helping people get the stories out, that's our mission now.
That's the way, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, as I said, if possible, we'd like to go back to sort of briefly touch on your childhood and where you're brought up, your family settings. And
Yeah, of course. So I'm from Widnes. Have you ever been to Widnes?
No.
Have you ever been to Liverpool and Manchester?
Last week for the first time.
For the first time?
Yeah.
What do you think of it up there?
I didn't see much of it. It seemed a little bit more run down and
Industrial.
rough. Yeah, rougher than around here.
So there's like a triangle of little northern towns in between Liverpool and Manchester that all begin with W. There's Warrington, there's Widnes, and above us there's Wigan. Very friendly people. Growing up, you know, everyone left the doors open. Even now when I go to my hometown, people walking dogs or anything go past you. Everyone says hello. A lot of people say love as well. So you go to the shop, can I get a pint of milk, love? And it's not like they're hitting on the woman, it's just like friendly terminology. So I grew up in a loving family, one sister, and I excelled at economics. I wasn't like 100% nerd. I was also a bit of the class clown at one point, but I did go 100% nerd as I got in my later teen years. Got into my A-levels, got into my degree, business studies at Liverpool Uni. And I also had this parallel party side. And my raving partner when this all began, because in my town, Widnes, my friends kind of like stayed in the town, they didn't go out much. But me and Wildman were the adventurous ones. So every weekend we'd go off to Liverpool, Manchester, and that was when the rave scene was just beginning.
And what age was this? Sorry to interrupt you.
This was the late 1980s.
And how old were you then at this?
So I was like late teens, early 20s. Yeah. There was a thing called the Summer of Love. I heard house music, I think 1987. I went to, was it Spain or Tenerife with my girlfriend, and I heard house music. And I was dancing to house music, and I didn't usually dance because before that, like, it was people lining up to get in the nightclubs with shirts and ties on, and wasn't really into that scene. Then all of a sudden, the dance music came along, and young people were breaking into warehouses, airplane hangars. But funnily enough, one of the very first raves we went to was at a scrapyard in Toxteth, and there was a big guy with a plastic bag at the door. You just threw your money in there. And I interviewed Stephen French, and he said he was that guy on the door with the plastic bag. So that became my religion. Raving became my religion. So even when I sat my finals, I've got these beeps and beats going off in my head because I've been on ecstasy and speed all weekend long, and I've gone to that first exam on the Monday, and I'm doing it, and I'm still hearing like KLF and Adamski and Guru Josh while I'm doing my exams. Yeah.
So you did well to sort of keep your head down so much in terms of the exams and in this education-wise, didn't you, while you were partying and stuff? Were you smoking weed and stuff like this before?
Never smoked anything.
No?
Wildman asked me to try crack. He smoked crack religiously and crystal meth. He would stay up for like 2 weeks at a time. He had crack in a can or something, or a light bulb, I can't remember. And I did it. And it was like sizzle, sizzle, and then 60 seconds later it was gone. I figured I could take an ecstasy pill and dance my ass off for 4 or 5 hours and smile and hug and massage and get my head massaged and do all these fun things, versus the smoking the sketchy thing that makes you just want to have more, and it's hardly a nice high. So I didn't get into smoking anything. I saw my grandfather when I was a teenager. He had smoked too much and he was dying in hospital of cancer, and his skin had turned green. So being in there with my grandfather, and he says, "Shaun, never smoke anything, look what it's done to me," that put me off smoking for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I wish I didn't smoke. It's not a good habit, is it?
Apparently not. I'm a health person.
Yeah, like I said, unfortunately I tried most of the drugs when I was younger, and I definitely wouldn't recommend crack to anyone. It's
no. I did try heroin once later on as well. That didn't work for me. And I didn't really drink alcohol either. I just went straight to chemicals like speed and ecstasy, and later on ketamine, Xanax, other stuff like that.
Same, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, you look healthy. How old are you?
36.
Yeah, you look in good shape and everything. You look healthy.
Don't know about that.
You see people who are hammering certain drugs, and their faces age rapidly.
I think alcohol's one of the worst for that. Luckily, I've never really drunk at all. I don't drink. So.
I had a cellmate, and he looked like he was 70. His entire face was shriveled, and his hands were shriveled. And I thought, this has got to be like a heavy heroin user. And I said, "What's your deal, man?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm only in my 40s. I drink a quarter of liquor a day. And I'm like, this is what alcohol does to you." It's like, holy shit, man. He's like, "It's the worst." Yeah.
Terrible, but yeah, alcohol and heroin are the worst. But so you went to Liverpool University, and then after that you ended up departing to go to America. Then
yeah, I'd visited throughout my teen years. My aunt, she changed my date of birth in my passport, so I was 21.
She sounds like a good auntie.
Yeah. Oh man, at the time of my life with her. So she's introduced me to all these American women as Paul McCartney's nephew.
Winning.
And I'm just like a little nobody from Widnes. All of a sudden, these American women hear my accent, roll out the red carpet. This is paradise for me. I'm thinking I want some of this when I finish my degree.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so you were straight out there. Was it within a couple of months of finishing the degree? Or?
No, actually, I wanted to stay around for the Glastonbury Festival. I think that was Guru Josh Adamski. This was around 1990, 91. And that was the only time I ever went to the Glastonbury Festival. I remember there was nowhere for me to sleep, and I was on acid. I couldn't find my car. I was just tripping on acid, walking around country lanes and shit. Yeah.
Did you ever hear of the Genesis raves around them times, like the 90s?
Was that in the South?
Yes. Or was that?
Yeah, all my flyers, my flyer collection, I had a flyer collection going from the late 80s to SWAT team came May 16, 2002, all through my Arizona raving days. Police took it to use as evidence against me and never got any of it back. But on those flyers, a lot of it in the north, and I remember the headline DJs were Sasha, Carl Cox, Fabio and Groove Rider, Evolution, Take Me Higher, and Amnesia House was a big name for throwing the raves back then. That's one I remember.
But funnily enough, round the corner from here, this was obviously slightly before my time. Aldershot was one of the main places in the country, wasn't it, for putting on some of the first raves?
I don't know, because I was all up north. I came south once, and I ended up in Brixton in the fridge. Yeah. That's the only time I ventured down here.
Yeah, Aldershot, literally, was the town next door, was putting on the first raves that ever happened in this country were put on in Aldershot. As funny as it was, I don't know, in the warehouses. The reason I asked about Genesis was I met Andrew Pritchard recently.
Yeah.
He was the person who set up Genesis raves, and he became ridiculously rich off it.
Did he?
Yeah. He made millions off it as a kid.
Wow.
And obviously moved to Jamaica, and his story's insane.
Sounds like a good guy, yeah.
Yeah, he got caught bringing in tons to this country of cocaine and links to customs links. It was insane. So like you say, after the Glastonbury, then you ended up travelling out to America.
Yeah, didn't have a work visa. Jumped on a plane with my student credit cards, and the customs guy's like, "What are you coming to America for?" I'm just visiting my aunt. He's like, "Well, how much money have you got?" I said, "None." He's like, "None?" And I just bust out my wallet with all of my student credit cards in it, because I've been opening multiple accounts in building societies, banks, everything.
Why? Just to extend your credit?
Because...
Or to build your finance?
Yeah, to build my stock market trading. Because they were if you had an account at a building society or a bank, this was when they were just bringing their shares to the markets. So you got priority when they allocated their shares as an account holder.
Okay.
So I had all these accounts and all these cards. So I just bust out, sees all these credit cards, and he's like, "Welcome to America, Mr. Attwood. Have a nice day."
They are notoriously strict, aren't they, when you go in there? And obviously, when I went into America a few years ago, and I was with a group of golfers, they wanted to know where I was staying, how much money I had.
Yeah.
Every single aspect of it. And
I imagine since 9/11 it's got a lot tighter. Yeah.
Obviously no chance of you going back to America anytime soon.
Banned for life.
Banned for life.
Yeah.
And you couldn't get that overturned or anything, or you wouldn't even try to?
If I get a presidential pardon, but they cost about, I think, 7 figures these days.
Yeah, so no chance of one of them anytime
No.
soon then. You weren't trying to call Trump up on his last days then?
Oh man, if I had a Trump connection, I would have been right in there.
So, obviously once you arrived in America, how long was it before you got into the stockbroking, or how you managed to get the job there? How did that come around then?
My stock market stuff started in my economics class when I was 14. Teacher, Mr. Dillon, was giving me classes on my own. When I was 16, I asked my parents for some money to invest in Maggie Thatcher's British Telecom privatisation. And they're like, "Bugger off, we're Labour supporters. We're not bloody Tories like your nan." And then a light bulb went off over my head. Right, my nan. So on Sundays I used to have Sunday dinner at my parents' house, and then I had such an appetite I'd run down to my nan's and have a Sunday dinner down there as well. So over Sunday dinner I hit my nan up for money for British Telecom, and she gave me 50 quid, and it doubled first day of dealings. So that was it, I was hooked. And then my parents were like, "All right, we want some of this." So while I was at uni, and they were privatising, like, I think it was British Gas and water and all the other things that they did, I had accounts in not just my name by then, and my nan's, and my parents. I was like looking for pet dog and all this kind of stuff, aunts and uncles, all the building society accounts. It just snowballed. Yeah, but I mean, it was 50 quid, not much money, but to a kid it's a lot of money back then.
It's all relative, isn't it? So it's 50 quid, it could have been 50 grand, but you managed to double what you put in as a kid. And so by the time you arrived in America, then you were quite, knew quite a lot about the stocks and shit and all that. Even I was obsessed with it.
I'd gone to Widnes Library and ordered every book on the stock market I could get my hands on. And then I learned it was a function of not just numbers, but psychology. So I started to read crowd psychology, like Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds by Charles Mackay, The Crowd by Le Bon. I was studying these as a teenager.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because like say, most of the swings, aren't they, in share price are emotional ones rather than actual real ones, aren't they?
Absolutely. Like you see with Bitcoin now. It's psychology. I mean, all it is computer code. It's psychology that's running it up as high as it's run recently.
Are you an investor in Bitcoin or cryptos?
No. When I was on True Geordie about 3 years ago, I did call the top on it about $20,000, I think it was. And I said, "Look, get out of this," to people. And then it crashed right back down to about 3,000 or 4,000. Recently, I was on Jack Mate's podcast and he asked me about it. I said, if it goes over 20,000, it could easily do a big run. And it did. It hit $40,000 recently.
I think it's going to hit 100,000 at a certain point.
Yeah. Once psychology takes over, there is no limit to the ceiling. It could just keep going and going. And that's why it's very hard to call the top. So I personally believe that Bitcoin is worthless and it is a millennial bubble.
100%, that is correct. It is worthless. It's only people that have made it worth something.
Yeah.
But the thing is, as the governments bring in more restrictions and stuff on people, then they're creating more value in cryptocurrency, aren't they? Where it's just unregulated, and you've seen in other countries where a pound or something's been worth nothing overnight in Africa and South America and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And who wants to wait to do that in this country?
But anyone can create a crypto, so the supply potentially is unlimited, and there's a lot of economics. If you've got unlimited supply, it will crush the market eventually.
Of course, I just thought where Bitcoin was the market leader, that it might, if there's one
that's what's holding it up, the flagship factor.
Yeah. And it's obviously it's only limited to a certain amount of coin and stuff like this. It's, But it is obviously, like you said, the value is created with it is worthless. It's only people that create the value.
Tulip bulbs are worthless.
So
People were remortgaging their houses to buy tulip bulbs in Holland during tulip mania. And look at how high the value of they went up. And it can go on for years.
So you think it's better to stick to your traditional investments? Gold, I think, is the safest one, isn't it?
At the peak of any market, the public are the ones that get suckered in and lose everything. And there's a saying in the market, when your barber is talking about the hottest thing, the hottest investment, it's time to get the hell out.
The first person I ever heard of Bitcoin from was through my barber, as fun as it was. But he managed to get it for a few £100 a shit, coin. And I can't remember how many he bought, but he's made a couple £100,000 out of it.
Wow. Yeah, so the barber factor is at play.
The problem is you constantly think you've missed the boat, don't you? So you don't know whether to jump onto the boat. But it's,
Yeah, I'm just watching it, astounded, and perhaps once the collapse starts to begin, if it doesn't go down too quickly, I would like to sell it short.
Of course, but my brother works for JP Morgan. He's a broker there, and they're staying away from all crypto, and he told me to stay away from crypto as well and just invest in real stuff instead.
It could get crushed at some point.
And obviously he's working there and he's telling me this, and I've got to start taking note, haven't I, from it?
Yeah.
So how did you find getting into the stock market when you actually arrived in America? Obviously, was it a bit disillusioned with, obviously you mentioned before, it's all cold calling and all this sort of stuff?
Yeah, I wanted to be an investment analyst, but there were no investment analyst jobs in Phoenix, Arizona. It was all sales. Now, during my university years, I had worked in sales on the weekends in like Top Man, Next, Burton's, just stood there, in the clothing shop, helping people find sizes or on the fitting room, whatever. So I did have a bit of sales experience, but I've also got anxiety, social anxiety. And that was what led to me taking drugs. So the Series 7 examination is what you've got to do to qualify as a stockbroker. I was in a race against time to get working and to make money because it was commission only. And the boss says, you've got to sit this Series 7 exam. I said, all right, cool. Put me in for it right away. And he goes, no, you've got to do all the study classes. It takes months. So I said, look, I've got an economics background. It can't be that hard. Put me in for it right away. He goes, oh, you'll change your mind when you see the study manual. He went out the office and come back with a book this thick, puts it on the table, and he says, there you go. So I'm flicking through it, and I find like the exam format, it's multiple choice questions, and the hardest stuff was like options. I was already trading options as a kid. So I said to him, you're kidding me, it's just a multiple choice test. I've just done my degree, I had to do pages and pages of calculus, and you want me to do these the classes? He goes, I like you. I like the confidence you have. You know what, I've never done this before. I'm just going to put you in for the class right away. And I later found out these guys had like Italian mafia links as well. This guy ended up going missing. He had some shady characters coming up. A lot of these penny stock outfits were...
you ever seen The Sopranos?
It was just like that.
Sort of thing, yeah.
He goes, but his face went serious, and he was big, like New York Italian guy. And he said, but you don't let me down. Implying like people who let me down, bad things happen to. I don't like it when people let me down, something like that. Yeah. But I was just totally gung ho. I was feeling like I'd watched that movie Wall Street. Greed is good, and I was at that age. I was believing that success and making money were the meaning of life, and I was extremely cutthroat and mercenary. That all carried forward until I got into the prison, introspection, and realised that happiness is in your thoughts and your heart. And I've done TED Talks on that. But at that age, I was mercenary and disciplined and ready to put the hours in to make $1 million before I was 30. That was my goal. By the time I'm 30, I've got to make $1 million. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that was my goal as well. It would be very destructive.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, because you blow up in the end. Yeah.
So, how long did it take for you before you obviously arriving in Arizona, before you became successful in the stock market? Like a couple of year period, 2-3 year period?
Yeah. First couple of years, I'm living off cheese on toast and bananas, running out of money on my student credit cards, worried I'm going to have to come home. I'm not making much money. The boss, he didn't put me with the rookie brokers. He put me in the back of the office with a gang of brokers who looked the most intimidating, that he called the criminal quad. Yeah. One of them was a Vietnam vet, who would just randomly have flashbacks and start kung-fuing the air. Another one was an alcoholic. He had like some, I don't know, vodka or some shit in his briefcase at all times. And another one, who I grew really close to, he had been in prison actually. He got in a bar fight, he'd been in prison. And he was telling his clients that he'd had cancer, he'd been in hospital, and that's where he'd been for the past few years. And he was actually finding lists of people who were...
other cancers?
Yeah. So these guys were completely Machiavellian.
Yeah.
I am a rookie stockbroker hoping to sit with the new rookies. And then the boss goes, "You're with those guys at the back." All, the Vietnam vet's got his face is all scarred up and everything. I was absolutely shitting myself. And I sat there, not too frightened to say a word to them. And they were looking at me like they wanted to eat me. Yeah, but eventually they started to school me. And they taught me some things.
All the naughty ways.
Yeah. But it also... because they'd have like strippers up and they'd be snorting crystal meth and bikers would be dropping dope off and all this. It kind of like, I thought that was a normal thing. I just got out of university and I thought like the drug stuff was normalised to me from seeing what these guys were doing. I hear about, the stockbrokers and the champagne Charlies and all this. And I guess this was an Arizona equivalent to it. Biker gangs dropping meth off and strippers coming up to the offices. Doing striptease dances and everything.
I've heard that actually goes on around the world with all these stockbrokers, even in London.
Yeah, Wolf of Wall Street portrayed it accurately because that was the same era, the 90s.
Yeah, luckily my brother hasn't got caught up in it, but I've met a couple of people down the golf club. They've said that they couldn't cope with it, the hours, the drugs, the partying.
Well, that's it. I got Bob's, which is burnt out broker syndrome. I mean, I'm in there at 6 o'clock in the morning, sales meeting, working. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Working until 9 or 10 at night as a cold caller. And the boss is like, they had these power meetings and they were like military drill instructors. And the boss is like, "Lunch is for wimps. If you are not sat at your desk, other brokers are calling your clients. Sitting brokers, you make more money if you are pacing. Everyone needs to have a 12-foot curly cord on your phone. Pacing brokers make more money. And smile and dial. Every broker should have a mirror. Smiling brokers make more money. You are only as big as your numbers are at on this board for the month." That's what it was like. But I was loving it.
Yeah, fair play. I mean, I did a year in a call centre before and I can't think of anything worse. It was absolutely horrific.
I was shitting myself for months, but once I started to make the moolah, I was loving it.
And so, like I say, how long did it take you? A couple of years before you became...
2 years. 2 years I'm broke. 5 years in, I'm the top guy in the office, grossing 6 figures.
And so, talk about from when you started actually became financially well off out there. When did the sort of self-destruct sort of thing happen, and then you end up bringing Wildman over and stuff like this? So, from when you had decent money, is that when your brain had started? Yeah.
So Wildman comes over 96, 97. He's been in prison in the UK for something. He thought someone had ecstasy and beat the guy up, and he didn't have ecstasy, and took some money off him, and street robbery, I think it was, or something. So I thought, all right, Wildman's got this side to him, aggressive side. I've got to help him channel that energy into something positive. So I'm only in my 20s, and my dream is to have him become a wrestler. I've watched, Andre the Giant and all this stuff, the British Bulldog. Wildman could do that, he's so big and strong. And I get him a place near the Georgian Dragon British pub in Central Phoenix. I think he'll just kick back with the expats and drink.
I've actually seen a picture of it.
Yeah, but he clicks up right away with all the local street people and dealers and sex workers and trans people, Native American trans people. And his house then, every day, is just non-stop partying, smoking crack, smoking meth. So
safe to say, sort of, he opened up the different world to you.
Completely. I mean, me and my missus went over there one night, knock on the door, bunch of Mexicans answer with guns. Well, where's Peter? Peter don't live here, what are you talking about? He'd rented his apartment out to a Colombian crack lord, because they like to move around a lot. and they were buzzing because you could smoke $100 crack rock in one breath.
Insane.
I went over there one night, and all the Mexicans are in a circle around the broker from the criminal quad, who was in prison for years and said he had cancer. This guy was a Iranian New Yorker. I mean, he was tough as fuck. When he got angry, like, these veins went down his face, and he was really fucking muscly. So he's in the middle of this circle with Wildman. All the Mexicans are around them, and the Colombian guys watching. They're up high on crack and just fucking arm wrestling. And they're like this, just looking at each other. And the Iranian American guys, the veins are all popping out of his head, and Wildman's eyes are just completely red from not sleeping. And they're just like this, just like, ah! And the Mexicans are like, yeah! It was just like that all the fucking time. It was mental.
And so when you sort of got introduced to this world, did it fill you with excitement initially?
So when Wildman said the Colombian wanted to invest in the stock market, I was still a bit sensible at that stage. So I was thinking, oh my God, the Colombians, this is where it comes from, the coke. He's probably, cartel. And from my research now, he was probably Cali cartel. That's who was running it back then. Escobar was dead. I was thinking, what am I going to do? Bring this guy up to the office and open an account for fucking Colombian cocaine traffic. I'm going to lose my job. Wildman brought pimps up to the office. So the secretary says, Peter is in reception. You need to come out here fast before any clients come up. So I run up to the front, and he's got a guy with like a purple top hat and all these pimp suit clothes and golf shoes on.
Stereotypical one that you see in the American films.
Yeah. And what did Wildman say? He needed money for a gun or something? So I'm like, turn around, get in the lift. I frog marched them both to the lift. And in the lift, I said, Peter, you can't just come up to my office like this. I'm going to lose my fucking job. Yeah, I mean, when he was high for days and weeks, his sketch was that people were coming to get him. There was a bunch of Mexicans coming to get him or whatever, and he needed a gun to defend himself. But he was instructed to stay away from guns at all times because of the shooting accident that happened at that first place that ended up with a guy dead on his doorstep.
Yeah, guns and drugs don't go well together, do they?
No.
And so, obviously, Wildman's coming out there. You're slowly getting introduced to this other sort of world and stuff like this. At what point did you decide to? Obviously, you're taking drugs for yourself socially and stuff like this.
Yeah.
At which point did you decide to get into this world and then start selling drugs? Like, where did that thinking come about?
It was towards the end of Wildman's first visit. So his first place, he's only in there for a matter of months. He's got a corpse on the doorstep with his brains blown out. We got to move him. We move him to the west side, put him in with a steroid head bouncer and some females. He ends up putting the steroid head bouncer's head through a plasterboard wall and gets evicted right away. And I said to the woman I just cut the check to, the landlord, how do you know he did that? And she said that the steroid head bouncer was seen running through the apartment complex in the middle of the night with plasterboard all over his face. So he then ends up with the two women who lived in an apartment complex in Tempe called Rancho Murrieta.
Yeah.
This is a massive, Tempe is ASU, party central, huge apartment complexes, and that is where we started to buy just to have our own little ecstasy parties. And I started to meet New Mexican Mafia brother, G-Dog. I'll show you a photo of him as well. I've got it on my computer. And various other heavier players in the drug market, especially from the Mexican and the Mexican-American side of things, because they have a lot of control and power in Arizona. Met some Russians as well, some Italians. And it went from me just showing off, I've got all this money, I can buy 50 to 100 pills off Acid Joey and have this party, and I'm the man because I'm giving pills away for free. Ego again, give pills away for free. Suddenly your friends multiply. I wonder why. Feeds your ego. Then I'm thinking, right, we can only get 50 to 100 pills, and people are showing up here all night long asking. Some are asking for 50 to 100 at a time. I see a business opportunity here. So I found out, Acid Joey found out where the locals, other local dealers were getting them from this guy out of LA. So I set up a buy of 1,000. 2 carloads of us went out there, and everyone in those carloads are now dead. Yeah. Wildman was in the car with me, my RX-7, and the other car was my friend Seth, who was a stockbroker, really big, massive guy.
Just to interrupt, your RX-7 is a nice car, it's a good choice.
Yeah, twin turbo. It was like that blowout edition, looks like a spaceship.
Yeah, I think I see the picture of it before.
Yeah, I was just going out there 150 miles an hour with fucking radar detector on, so you see where the cops were. If cops did pull us over, you know, we're English guys on holiday, blah blah blah, we'd always play the English card. So, and we had guns on us and everything. So it was quite crazy. Yeah, so in the other car was Seth. He was a big stockbroker guy, massive, who started to hang out with Wildman a lot when Wildman was at the first place, and Seth dropped out of work very quickly to hang out with Wildman. I think Seth's last day at the job, he picked up his computer and threw it at the boss. Yeah, he was high on crystal meth and God knows whatever else he'd be doing with Wildman.
What a place to work when you see this sort of stuff going on.
Wildman that's one of my proudest achievements, was getting Wildman called it purification.
Completely corruption, if you I'd call it.
He would get people from the straight lifestyle just off their trolleys on all kinds of drugs and get them to do crazy things and completely send their lives in whole new directions. He called that purification. So that's what he did to Seth. Seth was such a great guy, man. He only died a couple of years ago. He had a heart situation. And yeah, I really enjoyed those times. So Seth and Acid Joey are in the second car. Acid Joey was found dead in his swimming pool with all of his clothes on. Yeah, well, I think that was while I was in prison. So most of my male friends back then were extremely high risk. We're sat outside in the cars outside this house in West Hollywood. And have you seen that movie Point Break?
Yeah.
So the guy shows up, Saul, with a bunch of surfer gangsters. I've never seen surfer gangsters before. Straight out of Point Break. The surfer gangsters leave, I go in the house. Wildman's like, let's just go in and fucking rob him. He's kept us out here waiting for too long. I'm like, chill out, man. If we rob him, how are we gonna, have a regular thing? So I go in, and he says to me, have you got the cash? I say, yeah. Have you got the pills? Yeah. Can I try one? He gives me a pill, and I chew it, and I'm very familiar with the taste of ecstasy, so I knew it was good right away. And then he brings out this big bag of Mitsubishis or something. And on the way back in the RX-7, I've got DJ Sasha on, and I've got some kind of fur covering on my seat. And once the ecstasy started to hit properly, I was like, listening to Sasha. Yeah. Nice. Got back. They were gone within a weekend. So then, to answer your question, do I want to work as a stockbroker all these long hours? Well, I can make this much money from the party scene. Fuck it, that's what I did.
So everything sort of contributed, the fact that there was sort of a market gap there at the time sort of contributed to where it was such a opportunity for, say...
An arbitrage opportunity, yes.
And so it went from one strength to another, and it just constantly evolved and got more.
At my sentencing, the judge said I was unable to discern the harm I caused society from. I traded ecstasy just like I traded the stock market. I didn't see any social difference.
This is what I see in you, and quite a lot of people. That people might say people like you aren't suited to the underworld. People like you, whatever you do, are going to do it to the maximum.
Yeah,
and that's what I see. And obviously, I was not to quite the same lengths as yourself, but unfortunately,
let me just talk a minute about those lengths, because on our last interview, I did not bring my paperwork, and because I ended up with over 100 co-defendants, it was a complex case. My lawyer was the lawyer who represented the New Mexico Mafia. That's how I ended up with him. And that's how I had this code, of not snitching and giving everybody who got arrested legal benefits and all this other stuff. They completely schooled me. So, in the last interview, I didn't bring my paperwork, and, I was grilled quite a lot about my charges, and my lawyer said there is so much case paperwork it would fill rooms. I've just got to get a computer, authorize the computer to bring you in legal visits to show you some of it. So there's thousands and thousands of pages of it. So
And quite a lot of it, sorry to interrupt you, quite a lot of this stuff's public, isn't it, down the line? So people could go into legal archives, they can look up your stuff.
All my stories have been public since day one.
Of course.
So I just picked, because I've had to, I did a Bang Abroad episode, they verified my story with my paperwork, and I've had to find some of my paperwork again recently because I'm doing something else with another big TV company. And I sent them just 6 pages of it, which you read before we sat down here today. And I'll just read a summary bit at the end of the 6 pages. Normal investigative techniques utilised during the course of this investigation have failed, or such techniques reasonably appear to be unlikely to succeed if tried. So they tried to get undercover cops in. We saw them coming from a mile off. They would say we're from out of state, you know, we didn't know who the hell they were. We had all the locals locked down. This organisation started by us, me and Wildman, settling the disputes of the local little cliques in the rave scene. And by doing so, we harmonised them all into our criminal enterprise. The investigation of Shaun Attwood by Detective, I'll redact that, and Detective, redact that, has revealed a sophisticated, closely affiliated network of ecstasy distributors capable of large transactions of ecstasy and or other controlled substances, as yet undetermined, as indicated in this affidavit. Now, because I had about 200 people working for me, the people working for me, you know, our primary product was ecstasy, but a lot of them were one-stop shops for multiple other drugs that they were getting from, not just from me, but from other sources. Yeah, I was sourcing ketamine, some speed. I had an LSD chemist. We had an apartment where the chemist was laying out all these gel tabs. So here's what it says next. Conventional investigative techniques have not interdicted and will not successfully interdict the entire enterprise, nor allow for the identification and prosecution of individuals supplying ecstasy, meth, LSD to this organisation, nor will the techniques reveal the methods which the Attwood enterprise uses to launder its drug proceeds. An analysis of conventional investigative techniques and likelihood of success follows below. So they said that we were sophisticated and impenetrable, and that's how the only way that they could get evidence against us was through wiretaps. So in the end, the judge that all this was submitted to authorised wiretaps. At that point in time, I had quit ecstasy importation. I'd met a woman, fallen in love. I thought I got away with it. But the people who were working for me had continued in low-level drug transactions, and there ended up about 10,000 conversations getting recorded with a lot of people throwing my name around, because before I got arrested...
So really quickly to pause you, was it the woman who steered you away from the illegal stuff, or was it a point where you realised it's got a little bit too much, got a little bit deep, you had money, you didn't need to do it, and you'd finally...
A combination of all of those things. So I had a lawyer, not the lawyer that the New Mexican Mafia recommended to me. I had another lawyer I worked with.
Why did you change lawyers?
Because when I got arrested, this lawyer, we had to bring in the big guns.
Yep.
Yeah, because what we did was we formed a united front, a united defence.
Yep.
So you have one highly paid lead lawyer, 100 grand in this case almost. All the other lawyers for the co-defendants who are not cooperating, he guides them.
Yep. Okay.
So when you've got over 100 co-defendants, obviously you can't pay 100 grand for everyone, because then then they seized all my money as well. So that was all that was left. But before I got arrested, we had another lawyer who was not as expensive as this person.
Yes.
Who right away was the legal benefit guy. Would go and see the person and say, look, you've got no criminal history, we're going to bail you out, exercise your right to remain silent. We already told them all this before, when we hired them. But he would reiterate that, we'd bail them out. And if they hadn't got any criminal history, they probably, first offence, they probably wouldn't do any prison time, so there's no reason for them to snitch. Okay. So that's how we had that set up, yeah.
Okay, so like you said, you'd stopped doing everything for...
Approximately a year.
Approximately a year, yeah. And then obviously...
They've missed the boat, my lawyer said. They've missed the boat. Because we added up all of the drug transactions in the grand jury indictment.
Yeah.
And this was just from the telephone calls. So I've been active for, since 97. SWAT team comes 2002.
Yes.
They only looked at these calls, and the total drugs involved was less than £6,000 dollars on the calls. But if you look at the entire case, I mean, you've just read the size of the transactions that people were getting busted with before that, and they were in the tens of thousands of ecstasy pills from what you just read. So you know what we actually did, but they missed the boat.
Yeah, significant stuff. I mean, not to the same degree, and I don't know, put my thing, but I ended up just getting caught with a piece of paper, a tick list.
Yeah.
This is the point where I'd completely stopped doing it. It was an old tick list. They didn't have 1 gram of drugs. They didn't have a text message or even 1 phone call.
Yeah.
But because the figures on the paper were so serious, I ended up pleading guilty out of fear. You know, this plea bargaining thing, and got a 2-year sentence, even though there was a 50-50 that I could have beaten it. But
and the message for young people is that young people think that the cops have got to catch you with drugs. They don't. A conspiracy case, you're screwed. All it takes is someone from your past to go to the cops, to get out of what shit they're in, and give your name up, and you're fucked. So it's a mug's game. They're building private prisons all over the world for people in the drugs game. You had the low-hanging fruit to fill the private prisons with. Don't do it, honestly. Don't get gangsteritis.
And even in this country, it's even worse. They've got a conspiracy for an individual, because you know a conspiracy has to be more than one person, but in this country they've created a charge called concerned with the supply, which is basically, that's an individual conspiracy. So that's what they charged me with, which is insane, you know.
I thought I was cleverer than the cops. I never spoke on phones. They got me doing personal use on phones in code, but I never spoke about one big drug transaction on the phones. They never caught me doing that. And I used pay phones and pages to meet people in person. That's how I did it. And I thought, right, they've got no drugs, they haven't got me talking about any big transactions, what can they do? But I was naive to conspiracy and statute of limitations. You become responsible for everybody else's crimes, especially if you're at the top of the crimes syndicate. Yeah.
So talk to me about the day that obviously the police came crashing through the door as such.
Yeah.
And so were you thought everything was fine, you're living a normal life with your new partner, everything's happy.
An apartment in Scottsdale. I'm enrolled in college now, learning Spanish, and I'm back trading the stock market. We're thinking about moving to California. I like to be by the water, the coast, Santa Monica. I love skating down there, and everything's hunky dory. But get up, bam, 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 bam on the door. Jump up, look through the people, blacked out. I'm thinking, is it the cops or is it people pretending to be the cops come to rob us? Look throughout the window, SWAT team, whole place is surrounded, boots thudding up the stairs, go to my girlfriend, what should we do? Better let me in. Halfway through the living room, then just boom, door just flies off the hinges. Hands above your head, don't fucking move, get on the fucking ground now. So you fall very fast because, have you been SWAT team raided?
Yeah, I've been.
Where all the guns just open up in front of you, like they fan out.
A house raid, but I got pulled over before by 5 or 6 cars, all the machine guns and the helicopter and all that sort of stuff.
Where they're like running at you with guns in your face, screaming at you.
Surrounded by 6 or 7 cars, and they all had automatic guns on me before I even knew. I was there shaking. You
think that if one of them opens up by accident or someone fucks up, you're just dead and you just shoot yourself, don't you? My heart was like out here.
Mine was ridiculous because at one point I can remember when I've seen them in this country before, sometimes they have rubber bullets or pellet bullets where it's like football games and right. So I asked one of them, I said, is it the rubber things you got in there? And he goes, no, it's the real one, don't talk to me again. I said, I've never been involved in guns, why have they got this on me? Like,
so all that was very fast, but it seems like a lifetime. And then the detectives come in and my nemesis fucking just grabs me up by the handcuffs and he's like, English Shaun, you're a big name from the rave scene, we finally fucking got you. And I start yelling at my girlfriend. I've already schooled her on the protocol, but I start yelling at my girlfriend, I am exercising my right to remain silent. I am exercising my right to remain silent. I'm only in my boxer shorts. So they grab me and fucking, just like pull me down the stairs outside. They grab some clothes out my dirty laundry basket and throw them at me. One cop's guarding me at the bottom. And they put me in a police car and take me away, so I can't influence her. And they did try to influence her, but Wildman said he was walking past the room in the cop shop. They were trying to interrogate her, and he heard him say, "These are very serious charges you're facing." And he managed to like just fucking, I don't know, just like shake free of whatever they were taking him and put his head in the door and go, "Very serious charges, my fucking ass." Ha 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 ha! Daft fucking pig bastards! Take no notice of these motherfuckers, Claudia! And they just dragged him away.
He's insane.
Totally.
And so, and you ended up, I don't know if it's the same term, is it remanded? Do they use that term in America?
I was on remand for 26 months.
Yeah, so you got remanded from the police station.
Yeah,
And where did you initially get remanded to then?
So first one was Towers. Oh no, you go into the Horseshoe, Madison Street Jail, Horseshoe Processing Centre. You're in there for about 2 days. That's where you're supposed to see a judge. So it's like a horseshoe formation, subterranean. Oh man, it's hell. It is Dante's Inferno. You go in a cell and everyone's just sardine on the floor, like cross-legged. There's a toilet at the back. Someone takes a shit, just stinks the whole area out. This is all the new arrestees now. So you've got like gangbangers from rival street gangs want to fight each other on sight. You've got homeless people who are drunk and high. You've got people who've been in fights and tased by the police. People who are injured, drunks. And it is absolute fucking mayhem, honestly. Gangbangers just start fighting, the next thing, guards run in, pull them out, put them in these restraint chairs, look like medieval torture devices, like these black chairs tilted back. And if you, some of them they put a spit hood on you as well. You see people just fucking, just like this. It is. There's no sunlight, it's underground. You don't know if it's day or night, but the heat goes up against the wall, that's how you tell. You're in these, I know you're in your street clothes until you get to the end of it, then they give you the black and white striped pyjamas, yeah. Jeez. I was lucky because Wildman was in there, and some of my other co-defendants, and people were buzzing, because I think they'd been on the TV and shit, and people knew who we were, and it gave us a bit of status going in. And because Wildman was so big and crazy as well, that calmed people down against doing anything against us.
So obviously those first few days there, obviously the fear that you're in, obviously a jail, you're not someone who's used to be in an environment like that, you're not a violent person or anything like this, but was there a case of, were you thinking, no, that nothing's going to stick on this, I want to be out in a few months because I haven't been doing anything, or were you...
You know what, in the beginning, I'm thinking, I quit this shit, there's nothing in my house. They tore up my house apart thinking they were going to find Aladdin's palace of drugs, which they didn't. They got no evidence against me, but in the Horseshoe, you go from cell to cell, like every hour they call you to the next cell. You get to a point where there's a little lady behind a plexiglass screen and she gives you your charges. This is where it starts to go wrong in my head now. So she gives me my charges and I read it and I don't understand it properly, but it's intimidating as fuck. It's like leading a crime syndicate, continuous criminal enterprise, conspiracy. I think there's about 12 charges on the original indictment, which doubled over a year. But then the bail bond next to conspiracy is $750,000. And I say to her, "What's this?" She goes, $750,000? That must be a mistake. It can't be that big. So she blah 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 checks around, and she's like looking at me like, "No, it's $750,000." So I'm thinking, fuck, maybe she's wrong, maybe it's a mistake. My heart's going like crazy. And then now, in the Horseshoe, you're not allowed to like visit other people's cells, but somehow Wildman, he gets his paperwork and finds me and bangs on the window and holds his charge sheet, and he's got 500,000 bail bond. So that was the moment I knew we were fucked. And there were some guys in there as well who I showed my paperwork to, and old cons who started to school us and discuss it. Yeah, so that must have been obviously a horrific moment when you got all these and it's sort of where it dawned on you quite the situation you were in at that point there. And and I'm thinking, oh man, I ain't going home tonight.
Yeah, what the
no
fuck have I done?
Yeah, with this month, the size of bail bond.
So how long did you say you spent in the Horseshoe then before you got moved to another?
Well, you don't exactly know because it just does messes with your head, but I think 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
No sleep at all. You just come out there stinking like a wet dog because it's the Sonoran Desert. It's almost 50 degrees. Literally by the end of it, I was like going to the combination sink toilet and just throwing water in my armpit and getting grapefruit peel and squeezing it to get the citrus shit from the peel into my armpit just to try and change the fucking smell. I think that just made it worse. It just fed it. I remember Skinhead came up to me and goes, "Does that work?" I'm like, "I don't fucking know, I'm just desperate."
Yeah, they're not the most hygienic environments, are they?
Oh my god.
Prisons, unfortunately.
No. And hygiene is a real one, because once you go to the next place, they tell you what the rules are. The gang, yeah.
Yeah, not good at all. So talk to me about when you got moved to this next prison then, and like the introduction, as you're saying, to the gangs and all this sort of stuff, learning about the racial, because in this country it's not done in that way, the racial...
All completely racial. So the final big room is where you're waiting for your security classification. I think the first group of co-defendants was only 13 on day one, and almost just over half of them were men. So we're sat down, there's like 7 or 8 of us, and we're discussing, you know, what's going on. And we've got a US military sniper in there with us. When Wildman, when his first house in Mexico blew up, I had to send him down there to find and locate Wildman. So he's handy for talking to the Mexicans. And who else have we got in there? Oh, a DJ is in there from the rave scene. So anyway, all the security levels come in as minimum security. And then Wildman's came in as medium. And my initial classification was to a medium security remand jail called Towers.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't want to house me with Wildman. We had a do not house together. So there were 6 towers. 5 of them were minimum. And then higher security or stuff like that they put in this other one. I'm sorry, medium. So I was in medium security Towers jail, but with the higher level people in the medium security in my first year. Yeah.
And so let's talk about, obviously, at this point here, you had been sentenced as leading up to, like, what... Luckily I was never on remand, but I can imagine it must be a huge fear from that moment when you got the paperwork up until when you got sentenced.
Honestly, I was so lucky.
But what are those nights like when you don't know what you're going to get, and there's obviously that fear? Like I said, I've never been in that position. Like, what must that be like? It must weigh on you so heavily.
I got put in a pod. First I'll do the arrival. I got put in a pod where the skinheads were attacking people, and then even one of the guys who came in with me, suspected Chomo, they fucking left him for dead. They asked to see my paperwork, and they were looking at it all, and they were like, you know, well, first off, actually, no, they brought me in a cell, and they were like, what are your charges? So I didn't know the procedure, so I'm saying I don't understand what my charges mean. I wasn't sure whether I should be sharing this information with them, and that just pissed them off. Then they got me up against the wall, like, what do you mean you don't want to charge me to Chomo? I don't even know what Chomo is at this point. So I pulled out my charge sheet. It doesn't show that in my Bank Abroad episode, it was a reconstruction, but I actually pulled out my charge sheet. So they say all the charges I said to you earlier, and the bail was $750,000. They loved that. They were like, God damn, who did you guys kill? Are you guys the mafia or what? I was like, no, I'm just throwing raves, ecstasy. And I told them, Wildman was in there with me basically, and gave a description of them, because I was scared of these guys. Basically I've got a big psychopath in with me. How can I find this guy? I'm a big psychopathic crime partner. That's how they'll find him. So
yeah, so I can completely imagine. Obviously, once they saw your charges and stuff, that obviously it gave you some sort of...
It did, but I could tell they were still curious, and they were still going to check up on me. So I said, look, my crime partner's in here. He's fucking this big. He's a dangerous guy. How do I find him? You know, he's got my back. And they said, we will find out, you know, everything about you, basically. Anyway, I got moved out of there, go to another tower, and I was so lucky because I was scared going in. And there was a guy in there, a hippie, who was actually buff now because he'd been working out in the jail, there'd been a lot of fights. And me and him had got high. I got him way high. I think he'd been in my limo after one of the raves, and I took him to the after parties and stuff. And we were getting high with some beautiful raver women, and we'd had a good time together. So he, as soon as I walked in, he was like, English Shaun, English Shaun. And then he took me to the head of all of the different gangs. The white gang, the black gang, the Mexican-American gang, the Mexican gang, Chicanos. And the best thing in the world is to know someone, man. The worst thing is when you don't know anyone, they're all looking at you like they're going to do something. But once you know one person and he vouches for you,
yep.
Yeah. And then at church, everyone saw me and Wildman hugging, best friends, Cody's, and everybody knew then. And it spread throughout the Towers jail that we were one of the biggest groups in that jail.
And so obviously leading up to that, then obviously there was a certain point where you obviously got sentenced. Then,
Yeah.
And so talk to me about that day, how that came around. You ended up doing the plea bargaining. Was that correct? You plea bargained?
Yeah. So Wildman, he did a plea bargain after a year, and I told him keep fighting the case. You know, you might get it reduced. And he says, "Look, no, my lawyer's saying if I fight the case, I'm gonna get fucking decades." So I respected that he just made his decision and he took his sentence, because he'd been deported about 2 or 3 times and been a menace to society already, so he had all these aggravating circumstances. So he took his plea bargain. He said he thought he was lucky doing like 5 or 6 years on that he was going to do. In my case then, I kept fighting it because in the first year my lawyer came to the jail and said, I'm not even going to show you the sentence you're facing and what they're offering you. And that just made my mind run wild. After 3 months, as reported in the newspapers, the prosecutor put serious drug offender status on me, which carries 25 to life, in addition to the charges as well, the sentences that I could get for them. So, 1 year in, they thought by then all of my co-defendants would have agreed to cooperate, because it was the exact same setup as Sammy the Bull's case. They took the Bull down a year or 2 before me. He had 57 co-defendants and they all cooperated.
Yeah.
So they thought exactly the same thing would happen. 2 years later, only 4 people have cooperated. And that's because we were such a tight-knit community and people were scared of Wildman as well. He was right in there with them all. We ought to go court together. It was made clear, you know, we're going to look out for you. We've got this lawyer who's the lead attorney, New Mexico Mafia lawyer. Don't sweat it. And they held their mud, and that was good because nobody got big sentences. By holding their mud, a lot of them didn't even go to prison because they didn't have a case.
Yep.
Look at the grand jury indictment, less than $6,000 worth of drugs. They didn't have a case. They'd missed the boat. There was big time stuff, but they couldn't prove it because they had no witnesses against me. So everything's dragging along. Now, I was told very early on there's a legal strategy to employ in a situation like this.
Yeah.
As well as getting, the big lawyer with the big name as a big gun, there's the strategy of making your case go stale. Have you heard of that? Yeah.
They do it in Spain a lot, they try to, which is just delay, put at the back of the list, delay, then it's years and years, and the case seems less strong.
Yeah. So that's what I did. They arrest you. Your headline news that night, they've been tracking you for years.
Yep.
They're like partying. 2 years later, they're on to the next big thing. You're not as important to them anymore. So your plea bargaining power goes up because your case is stale. So I was at the beginning of the 3rd year when the lawyer comes in and he says, look, I've got a plea bargain, and the sentencing range I think was from like 9 to the low teens. And I was still thinking I could get a better deal. I was still thinking I could keep making the case go stale. I was like, I'm not sure. Now, the other lawyer that I mentioned earlier, who was the legal benefits lawyer, he just shows up and he starts screaming at me. And he goes, you've got the fucking best lawyer in Arizona and you want to drag this case out even more. And he's telling you to sign this plea bargain. You need to sign right now. And he stomped out. And that was it. I signed it.
Obviously, so you went for the deal out of fear, similar to what I did. But I've spoken to people down the line, and they said that I could have definitely beaten my case because they didn't have any evidence. Could you have beaten your case if you had actually fought it the whole way?
Man, that's jailhouse lawyer advice. That's pie in the sky. Yeah, there's a probability you will beat it.
Yeah.
There's also a probability you'll never get out of fucking prison for the rest of your life.
That's the fear that makes you do the plea bargain,
It's the spectrum of it, yeah.
Yeah.
There was a guy who was arrested before me in a similar case, and they offered him 15 years. And he said, no, I'm going to beat this. He had 20 plus charges. They found him guilty of all charges, gave him super aggravated maximum on each, and stacked them. So he was sentenced to 200 years.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get quite that in this country, but they certainly penalise you if you don't take that.
Yeah. And people say 200 years, that's bullshit. In America, they do that because the prosecutor then makes headline news and gets a promotion.
Yeah, horrific.
It's all careerism.
Horrific. And so what was it you were actually sentenced to then in the end? What was the...
So I went and did my sentencing hearing. All my family flew from England and shit.
Which is the worst part of the lot, because they're the victims in it. Like
when my dad...
You weren't the victim in it, you were the cause of it.
The worst part was when my dad gave his speech.
Yeah.
I just started crying my eyes out. My lawyer's giving me tissues.
Yeah.
To hear my dad just be heartbroken over the pain of his son, he offered to do the time for me.
Yeah.
Oh man, fucking hell. That was, oh yeah, I just broke down at that moment. He was like, I would do the time for him. Like, yeah.
It's horrific, isn't it?
But once I got sentenced to 9.5 years, I was on a high, like I took ecstasy. I can't believe it.
Well, yeah, like I said, I can imagine the fear you must have had for those previous 26 months when you just don't know what's going to happen. Now you've actually got an end date now, a goal, something to work towards.
Uncertainty
is a killer, surely.
Is worse than anything. That's why these IPP sentences, I totally sympathise with those guys. You've got to know when you're going to get out. That's only fair. Because when you don't, your head just plays tricks on you all night long. It keeps you awake.
All right, indeed.
Yeah, yeah.
But should we leave it here for today? Because we've just done over an hour.
Yeah, if we could just clarify the flower situation.
Yeah, because obviously I want to come back, but let's put this bit in as well. So we'll do
some
clips.
Yeah.
Go on, talk to us. So,
so let's...
a little bit of controversy with you a couple of months ago to do with a certain video. Where people were alleging that you were actually doing drugs. I never saw you actually sniffing a line. People trying to say you sniffing lines in the videos. And so let's clarify this then for a moment. So,
yeah, just two things I'd like to clarify then from that last controversial video I did with you. So one thing is my mugshot first. So I'm going to send you my real mugshot. So that thing that the trolls have put around was a photo of me after spending 26 months in Sheriff Joe Arpaio's hellhole remand jail, coming out of maximum security. I've been in max security for a year, locked down, couldn't even have nail clippers. My nails were like this long. When I got to the Department of Corrections, they were like, they didn't even let you clip your nails. They couldn't believe it. I hadn't seen sunlight in like a year. I'd lost over a stone. My face is all sunken in. I got the Mr. Burns hairstyle because I couldn't have access to anything to cut my hair. So that was not my mugshot. I'm going to send you a mugshot.
The mugshot will be up on the screen as we speak.
I do appreciate that, to clear that up. And the other thing is,
you don't even need to. That was something that people don't realise what happens to you when you go to jail. There's no scissors in the British jails. Yeah. So there's no like getting a haircut. It's only clippers or something like this. There's no decent things. Thankfully, I've managed to delete all my photos of me
You're lucky
while I was because I looked an absolute state. Like anyone.
I do look like an absolute state on that. I look like a proper. Yeah. So, all right. So the other thing then was, I was getting sweated over the flower not being flour. A lot of people have come to the belief now that the flower was not flour. And when you dropped me off after that interview, I said to you, because of the nature of what we did in that video, I've had to keep the plate because the cops could show up at any time and say, look, here's video evidence of you breaking the law, snorting cocaine. So I have kept this plate with me at all times.
Yeah,
and you came to my property and I showed you and you tasted what was on this plate. And what was that?
Flour. So
you have confirmed that this was flour. This is the original plate. I can confirm,
and this is from a couple of months ago, shortly after the date that I saw. This isn't some new plate that I actually saw at the time.
You took a photo of it?
Yeah, well,
maybe you can add the photo.
So,
please add the photo. Because people just run wild with conspiracy theories about me. And it's a shame because I'm doing this mission, to try and help people get their stories out there.
Well, I think it's part. Sorry to interrupt. I think it's part and parcel of the success you're having. Unfortunately, that you're going to get naysayers and people that.
Yeah.
I think that's like I say, it's part and parcel, isn't it? So
Wildman was watching it, and I'll tell you what. I won't name any names, but he was going to tear some people apart. He was absolutely going to destroy some people, and I do believe he's up there now, because since his funeral, everything's just changed in my life. I was towards the end of last year. I was down, worried about Wildman's health. When I did an interview with you guys, you could see I've got anxiety, I'm a bit down. And but since Wildman's funeral, I've felt his strength come in me. And all my enemies have been savaging each other. And my following has just gone through the roof. Just got 60,000 subscribers in the last month. Never seen anything like it. And I believe that the spirit of Wildman has generated all of this for me.
Well, you do seem in a really good place today. So,
I am. This is what I'm like normally.
Of course.
But I had a lot going on last year.
Of course.
And people look at that video and say, look at Attwood, he's anxious and he's down. So he must be lying. He must be lying. He must be making all this up. But you've come here today. You've cleared a few things out. I really appreciate that, Christian.
Well, I much
You've
appreciate
read pages and pages of my paperwork. There's a lot more there, and as you can see, for legal reasons, we've had to tone things down on interviews to not get other people in trouble.
Well, absolutely. So hopefully at some, well, like I said, thank you very much for the opportunity, and hopefully at some point we'll be able to come back and do a sort of part 2 where we cover a little bit of the end of the prison stuff and then talk about how you evolved in your new career, obviously back on the straight and narrow, the publishing, the books, and then the YouTube, and then talking about how that's evolving month by month, and then obviously your new show that you've just created on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so that would be absolutely fantastic. But like I said, thank you very much for today, Shaun.
And to the people watching this, who watched Christian's previously interview me, if you feel there's anything unanswered, please put it in the comments section, because a lot of people said I'd been exposed, but other people knew I've been telling those same stories for 10 years. So if there's anything that you feel during that previous interview I have not answered fully or has been exposed, you give it to me. I'm 100% transparent. My life is an open book, a trilogy actually. It's worldwide on Amazon. Check it out. It's all in there, these stories. So if you've got a problem with me, with my story, what I'm saying, put it in the comments. I'll gladly answer any questions. And Christian's come here today and read all my paperwork that is backing everything up to prove it. And
really quickly to finish off, obviously, anyone who's not subscribed, please get into Shaun's channel, and obviously the description is going to be below, and obviously look at his books and stuff like this as well.
Thanks,
Kindle, and support him, please, guys.
My subscription, my YouTube link will be in the description of this video. So yeah, a huge thank you to all the new subscribers. Really appreciate that. Helps us grow and attract bigger guests and do more stuff. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you.